All right, so we're going to do short refuge prayer and opening and 4 immeasurables for our opening prayers. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chodnamla, Shangju badu dagni kapsuchi, dagi jinsoki pe sonamgi, drola penshir sange juparsho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadamyam pesem centam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempar jorchik. Dug now dang do now gi gu dang drawar jorchik. Dug now me pe dewa dang mi drawar jorchik. Ne ring chak dang ni dang dra wei tang nam la ne par chi. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put some things up on screen share. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be, let me see here. Okay, so this is one of the pictures that I sent to you. So if you remember that this is the wheel of existence, it's the 6 realms, the 6 human realms. So remember we have the 3 higher realms and we have the 3 lower realms. And then in the center, we have the center wheel where we have the ignorance and we have the hatred and we have the attachment. And then in these 2 outer part of the wheel of the hub, here are the ascending and the descending beings. So it's showing the dualistic nature here. So we talked a lot about karma, and karma is, this is the result of karma being in these 6 human realms. So we know those. I don't think I need to repeat them. If somebody needs them, I'll be glad to refresh your memory. All this is in the clutches of the demon, of the Mara demon, that is basically ourselves. So it's our emotions, our afflictive emotions, it's our mental misconceptions, it's our habitual tendencies that keep us coming back to samsara. So this is being held in place in samsara. And here in the upper right-hand corner, as we look at this image, is the Buddha who is offering liberation. So what we haven't talked about is this outer ring. This outer ring is called the 7 links of interdependence. So this is what we're going to focus on tonight. There is, so you can understand what I'm talking about. Whoops. So here, this is the 12 links in the chain of conditioned arising. So there's several different ways of expressing this. It's 12 links, no matter what. It's like a chain. And here is conditioned arising. So this is all the results of all the karma that we produce for ourselves that becomes our phenomenal nature. And this is what is arising. This is what we're dealing with in phenomena in samsara all the time. Another way of expressing this is called interdependent origination. You may see that expressed as interdependent origination. And the reason for that interdependent is that everything is interdependent with each other. Everything is all mixed together and so on. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at it in this linear fashion so that we can begin to understand what this interdependence is. It's also called sometimes dependent origination. Dependent origination, it all means the same thing, that it's all interdependent, it's all dependent on each other, it's all the result and the conditioning arising and so on. So it all means the same thing. And there are these 12 links that this starts off with. So to begin talking about this, we have to understand a few things. So here's one word that we have seen from time to time that now we're really going to define and really begin to understand more. And it's the word called skanda. S-K-A-N-D-A, skanda. So there's 5 skandhas. And the 5 skandhas are aggregates. It means heaps, that there's these 5 heaps. And these 5 heaps are that which constitute our life, our body, our personality, things that we are dealing with as being a human being. So our attachment is in there, all the 5 poisons that we talk about and so on. So these 5 skandhas is very important to be able to get to know. And the 5 skandhas are part of the 12 links. So you'll see how they come together. But first we'll define the 5 skandhas. So if anybody has questions while I'm going on, don't hesitate to ask and stop if I go too fast or I miss something or something. So please, So if we think of ourselves as an infant, when we're first born, or we think of an infant that is in our family, our children or our grandchildren or something like that. When we're first born and as an infant, and we're laying there in our bed, in our crib or whatever, and what are we doing? What is the infant doing? The infant is beginning to touch itself, and it holds its feet, and it plays with its fingers, and it puts its fingers up in its hair. It's realizing its body. It's coming to understand, oh, I got this body. So the first skandha is the form body, is that we have this body, but we don't know at this time that it is temporary. Now, if you got to imagine that now we have been born, that the egg of the mother and the sperm of the father have come together with our spirit that came from the spiritual plane, came from the bardo of reality, and we manifested in this life. So here now this spirit is dealing with this body that it desired, that it wanted to have this body. It wasn't prepared to remain in the bardo of reality. It wanted this body. So now it's got this body, and now it's got to learn about what all this means. So the first thing that we learn is that we got this body. So the second skandha is sensations. Now we're feeling that we're wet. We're feeling that we repeat ourselves. We realize that we're hungry. We recognize that we're cold or we're hot. So these kinds of sensations are coming into us, and we're processing those sensations. We react to those sensations. So this is the second skandha. These sensations, these inputs that come to us, these that our senses pick up. The third one is perceptions. Now we start to get to a point where with our body, and our brain is in our body. We're not aware of that, of course. We don't know that that's what's happening, but there is this brain now that is processing all this stuff. We're getting these sensations, and now we begin to have perceptions. If I pee myself and I start crying, my mother is going to come in and is going to change me or give me something to eat. If I'm hungry, if I have this emptiness in my belly and I'm hungry, the mother is going to come in and feed me, or my father, or whoever is my caregiver is going to come in. So you start piecing together things and start having these perceptions that the mother smells really good, and I can touch her and she touches really good, and she feels good and she tastes really good. And I hear things that she says and does, and I begin to piece that together and identify that with my mother. And then there's maybe some other things that I put together that I associate with my father, or maybe my brother or my sister, or whoever are my caregivers and so on. Not to mention also the time of day, that some days it's very bright, but sometimes it's very dark. And we don't know what that means yet, but it's part of our sensations and it's part of our perceptions of the way things work. If I start crying when it's dark out, I'm going to get a different reaction from my mother or father than if I start crying when it's bright sunshine out. So we begin to formulate these things, and we're developing our powers. We're bringing these things together as perceptions. So that's the third skandha. The fourth skandha are mental formations. So these mental formations now is being able to recognize the forms that are external to our body. We have first our own form. Now we have external forms, mental formations, that we are creating these conventions that our mother and father are relating to us. Oh, your diaper is wet. Oh, you must be hungry. Here's your food. Here's your bottle. Here's your breast, whatever, here. And you begin to make these now associations with external. Your mental is processing how you're feeling, what your perceptions are with stuff that's happening outside of yourself. So you're creating these mental formations. Then the fifth one is consciousness, that we become aware of eye consciousness. We become aware of smell consciousness. We become aware of hearing consciousness. We become aware of taste consciousness. And we become aware of touch consciousness. Now, we don't recognize it as consciousness, but we're recognizing that these objects, these mental formations, are giving us information that is giving us some degree now of intelligence, of being able to understand things. So, and out of these 5 things coming together, we start manifesting a personality. We all go through this. And within your family, you know, you have brothers and sisters or whatever, and they go through the same thing with you're in the same house, living in the with the same family and the same, but the different brothers and sisters have different personalities in the way that they manifest from these same skandhas. So we have to recognize that this is part of the building blocks of that personality. Okay. So those are the skandhas. So now we go to, let's go to the wheel. So I'm going to screen share. Okay, so here is the wheel. So here is the first of the 12 links. This is the second, third, fourth, fifth, so on until we get to the 12th. Okay, so the image of this picture, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for everybody. There we go. Whoops, sorry. Come on. Well, it won't let me change it. I thought I could kind of scroll through here a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay. So here, this is the first link. So this first link is a man or a person, a human being, walking, actually he's a blind man who is walking with a cane. And what this represents is ignorance. Here is this being that now is in this phenomenal nature, who is like a blind person who needs to have this cane to help them in this landscape that they can't recognize. They're ignorant of what this is. So this is the first link. The second link over here is now a clay potter, a person with a potter's wheel, and he's got clay, and they're molding objects and so on. And what this represents are forms and impressions that they're forming, they're in their mind, that they are putting together these forms and impressions. So this is the second link. Now the third link.
But you know what I'm saying.
So what are these forms and impressions?
What's that?
What are these forms and impressions?
The forms and impressions are the inputs that you're processing. So you know what your mother is, what your father is, what it's like when it's light around you, what it's like when it's dark around you, what it's like when you pee yourself, and so what it's like when you're hungry. You're making these forms and impressions. You don't have any, these are just very, very simple things right now. You're going to see how they build up with each other. So it's just this very simple input coming in. So you're not processing it yet, but it's just coming in.
Lance?
Yes.
On the Xerox copy, it says impulses instead of impressions. So,
Right. So it could be impressions, impulses, formations. Yes.
okay, so
Impulses. So it's input.
so an impulse, oh, it's an input, but an impulse is like it's like a motivation to action, or it's like a behavioral thing.
Well, that's true, and that's a good point, and we'll see how that fits together.
Okay, I'll wait.
All right. No, that's a good point. Okay, so we're going to come back to all these things. So we're going to go around in a circle several times. And each time we go around, hopefully we get to go a little higher up on the spiral of understanding what this means. So that's why I said this is a very difficult thing. And thank goodness we have these wonderful illustrations to help us to do that. Okay. So now so that was number 2. This was the clay potter who is forming these impressions, these impulses. All right. Now the next one, number 3, is this is a consciousness on these 12 links. So they don't line up perfectly with the skandhas. The skandhas are mixed up within these 12 links. So we're going to see how this comes together. So, but for right now, we're on the 3rd of the 12 links. So here we have a monkey in a tree. And this is consciousness. This is recognizing all the things that we can do, you know? So it's like that baby, again, being in the crib, being in the playpen, who's grabbing all these things, and we're putting all these toys in them for them, and they're picking these up and they're tasting it, they're putting it in their mouth, and they're, you know, doing different things. They're building up a library of consciousnesses of what it looks like, what it tastes like, what it sounds like, all these things, you know, they're trying to identify these things. So it's feeding, it's building the consciousness levels. So that's the 3rd link. So it's symbolized by a monkey in a tree who is going from one thing to another. So the monkey mind is developing here. So now the 4th link is mental and physical. This is symbolized by a man and woman in a boat. This one here is not a very good image of that. Sometimes these different pictures are a little bit different. Usually that is characterized by, you see like a rowboat in a lake, and a man and woman are in this boat, and it represents the mental and the physical. So the boat is our body together with our brain, the mental and the physical. And we're in this thing, and we have to navigate on this body of water. So this is number 4. Number 5 here is the 6 senses. This is an empty house. This doesn't show it really well here, but here is an empty house. Let me see something here. Wait a minute. Oh, I see on this picture. Oh, I see what it does. It jumps around. That's really weird. Sorry, wait a minute. Here's the man and woman. Can you see this? Here's the man and woman on this boat. This is the first time I've used this particular image. I used it because it was colorful, but I hadn't studied it. So the other ones go in a much better sequence. So sorry for the confusion here. So here's the man and woman in the boat, and here's the monkey in the tree that we were talking about before. So now we're on number, what would be skandha number 5. And here is an empty house. This is skandha number 4. Well, we're going to come back to that, but these are the 6 sense organs. So it represents that here the baby has this body, has these senses, has these sense organs, has the eyes, has the nose, has the tongue, has the ears, has the hands to touch everything, the skin to touch everything, but it's like an empty house because it doesn't know what all this means. It hasn't put anything together yet. So it's got all these windows, but it doesn't have any furniture inside. It doesn't have anything that's been processed yet. So then the next one is number 6. Yes, number 6 is this one right here, where there is a loving man and woman who are embracing each other, who are like making love. And this represents contact, the coming together with, yourself and another being. So your dualism is building now, being recognizing, external things and so on, and the sensations that we get from that. The number 7 is, let me see if I can. This really is mixed up. That's really interesting.
Where am I at here?
What did you do?
I don't know.
Go over to that picture.
What picture? This one
Yeah,
here?
no, go to view. Go to view.
Up to view.
Where is, well, number 7, there's not a clear image of what that represents, but the classic image of number 7 is sensations, and it's represented by a man with an arrow in his eye. And this represents sensations. And if you ever get anything in your eye, just even an eyelash in your eye, it is the most uncomfortable thing. So imagine an arrow in your eye, what that is like. So the point here is, here are sensations now. Now we are recognizing these sensations in our body when something comes in.
When we're making love, learned how to get along with other people and how to know whether it's dualism developing.
Right. That was contact. That means contact. Okay. Now, number 8 is craving. So let me see where that might be. I think that would be,
Were you just craving?
Craving.
So craving, I'm really sorry, this is not a very good image for it. Let me look at one of the other pictures. Let me see something. Come on. There we go. Oh, this one, I'm sorry, my bad. Here's the man with the cane. I think it's much easier to see here. Here's the potter's wheel. Here's the monkey in the tree. Here's the man and woman in a boat. Here's the house with windows, an empty house with windows. Here's the amorous couple who are laying on a bed, you see. Here, number 7 is a drunkard, oh no, this is the guy with the arrow in the eye. The arrow in the eye. And here is the man drinking beer, this one here, which represents craving. That, when you get drunk and so on, you never get enough. You always want more. So it's craving. So he's drinking beer and getting drunk. And the next one, number 9 now, is a monkey grabbing fruit up in a tree. So this represents clinging. He's clinging to the tree and grabbing as much as he can on the tree. So number 9 is clinging. Number 8 was grasping. Okay. Now this next one here is number 10. Number 10 is
Hey, Lance,
yeah.
I don't know if this is the right place to ask it, but I'm wondering about the difference between clinging and grasping.
All right, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to give reference points now to the illustrations. And unfortunately, you don't have this, you know, in your hands. So if you can draw some kind of a sketch or something would be helpful here. So I'm
Okay.
sorry I got confused on the first one. So this one here is number 10,
Singing.
and this is becoming existent. And this is represented by a pregnant woman. Becoming existent. To become existent, to become pregnant with the possibility of birth. Then this next one, number 11, is a woman giving birth. So this represents birth here. Okay. And then number 12, this one here is old age and death, which represents a man with a body on his back. I know it's hard to see, but he's got this white figure that is a body, and he's having to carry this body with him. And he's running around, he's running through life about on his back, and he's literally running to his death. And he's carrying this body, his human nature with him to get to the impending death. So these are the 12 links as illustrated here. Okay, so just from the point of view of these raw illustrations, does everybody have an understanding of what I'm trying to say? Okay. All right. Well, then now we're going to move to another screen. So this one here. Whoops. All right, so now we're seeing it in this sequence here. So now those 12 links are in this linear fashion right here. Okay. So first we start off with ignorance, number 1. Number 2 is the impulses and formations. Number 3 is consciousness. Number 4 is mental and physical. Number 5 are the 6 sense objects realms, the 6 sense object realms. Number 6 is, that was number 5. Number 6 is contact. Number 7 are sensations. Number 8 is craving. Number 9 is clinging. Number 10 is becoming. And number 11 is birth. And 12 is old age and death. So obviously we start coming in on number 1 when we're born, we come into this ignorance. So the ignorance that we come in with and the impulses that we have, this goes to what Michael was asking. We come in with these impulses, that we have these habitual tendencies. We have these karmas that we're not aware of that are helping, that are influencing our formations, what our formations are. Some people might process heat to be enjoyable. Some people might process heat to be very unpleasant, depending on what their karma is. You know, where you know what their what it was that they came from, so to speak.
Yeah, I can just barely read it.
So we say that these 1 and 2 are our previous existence. is the previous existence that we are bringing into this life. So now the consciousness, the mental and physical, the six sense object realms, the contact, and the sensations are all part of our present existence. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is our present existence. Then number 8, number 9, and number 10, craving, clinging, and becoming are fruits of our present existence. What we're craving, what we're clinging, what we're becoming are the fruits of our present existence. And then 11 and 12, birth and old age and death is our future existence.
I don't see how birth is our future existence.
Okay, so I know, we're trying to get, the basis of our conversation to move forward. These are the things that we need to have an understanding about so we can talk about these things.
Yeah, but there's got to be between 10 and 11, there's got to be a death.
So becoming and birth. So becoming is fruits of our present existence, and then birth is our next birth, and 12 is our old age and death. So now one of the things that we need to think about here, it's shown as a linear display. 1, 2, 3, so on like that. However, this drawing here represents, and it's not a very good one because I couldn't do it very well, is to show that these 12 links are all interconnected with each other. So here we're showing some degree of that interconnection. So it's kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with a holon, but if you take 12 spheres and you interconnect them together, there's places where they all come together, but then there's places where only 2 and 3 come together, or 4 and 5 come together, 6 and 7. So it's a holon. All these things come together, and one thing is influencing the other. So these are the 12 links of interdependent origination. We originate as a human being with all of our personality and our body, all of our different things with this illustration. Okay. So now let me go a little deeper.
So, hey, Lance,
Yes.
would it be correct to say for number 2 that that's karmic predispositions?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, all this is karma, but here it's very specifically karma. So here's a few more definition things. So all this was taught by Buddha Shakyamuni. These are states that all psychological and physical. This is states that all psychological and physical phenomena constituting individual existence are interdependent and mutually condition each other. So this is my example of the holon, of these 12 spheres all coming together, being a piece of each other. This causal nexus, causal means to cause. The nexus is they're all coming together. The point at which they all come together of sentient beings is the explanation of how sentient beings are entangled in samsara. So what that is saying is that the wheel of existence is this display of samsara, the way in which it portrays. the way in which it manifests in these 6 different human realms that are made up of these 12 links of interdependent arising. So now we need to define this. What is sentient? Sentient is to perceive the senses, capable of perception, and conscious. So there's a degree of awareness. So there is, so animals fall into this, insects can fall into this, and some other invisible things, other subterranean things that we don't see very easily, fish in the water that we don't see very easily, are all capable of these senses, capable of perception and capable of a degree of consciousness. Causal is to produce an effect, a motive, a reason. To cause, causal, to produce an effect, a motive, a purpose, a reason why it's being done. So it's a psychological, intellectual process that is causal. And the nexus is the connection point between a group of individuals. So the individuals are these 12 links. So these are the 12 links that are the individuals, all this coming together. Okay? Yes.
Lance, is it possible that we go from one of these things to another one of these things? Like in the same day or in the same week or something like that?
We go through this every day now, all 12 of these simultaneously. As we're an infant, we begin to build up these things, and then they start getting more and more compounded as we get older and more sophisticated until we become a child and so on. When we're 1 year old, 2 years old, then all this stuff, is coming together, although we're not aware of the birth and old age and the clinging and the craving, although we're behaving in that manner. So all this is this, is this all coming together as one. This is all of us. These are the individual heaps of our coming together. So now let's look at that. Let's look at the skandhas. So I'm sorry, trying to get all these definitions are important to be able to get to the conversation that comes after this. We got to understand these elements. Otherwise, we'll be chasing our tail all the time. So now going back to where we started when I introduced the skandhas to you. So the number one skandha of the 5 skandhas is the form body. So the form body in this illustration is number 4, mental and physical. This is the form body of the skandhas. Number 1 skandha. Okay. Then number 2 skandha was sensations, and that's number 7 here on this chain. And the name is the same, sensations. Then the number 3 skandha, we said, was perceptions and feelings, and that's number 2 here on this chain. Perceptions and feeling. So this is impulses and formations. So we're going to talk more about each of these things. The number 4 skandha was mental formations, which is number 5, mental formations of the 6 sense object realms. So the 6 sense object realms. Number 5 is the mental formations of skandha. And then the last skandha is consciousness, and that is the same as number 3 in the chain. So, to put it another way, when we're talking about the skandhas on the chain, we're talking about mental and physical form. We're talking about sensations. We're talking about impulses and formations that come from that. We're talking about the 6 objects, the 6 senses and their objects. And we're talking about the consciousness of now the awareness of what all this means. Okay. So this takes a little while to do. You know, I've been through this many, many times. And the first many times of doing this, it was still like, you know, it was like a plate of noodles. It was hard to understand, you know, where all the noodles begin and end. And every time I pick up a noodle, it kind of slips off my fork, so to speak. And I got to start over again and so on. This requires a degree of contemplation, a degree of meditation, thinking about this and being able to understand the definitions of this. This is abstract, you know, esoteric stuff. So any questions? And then we can carry on.
Get some chopsticks for noodles.
Yeah, try with rice.
Just kidding.
Yeah. All right, so now let's try and put a story to this. Let's try and put a timeline to this. So I'm going to go back to the screen share. So we're born with 1 and 2 is within us. It's our karma. You know, we're born ignorant. We don't know what that karma is. We don't know what this life is. We don't know what this body is. You know, it's like we've been, you know, in this spiritual existence, in the spiritual world, and we've lost contact, understanding of what of physicality is. But at the same time, we couldn't stay as spiritual because we wanted to have this body, but we didn't understand what it is. So this is why we're ignorant, you see. We don't understand why it is that we want this body, why we want this life, but yet we want it. And this becomes our conundrum that we go through the whole entire life, having to deal with this. Along with that, we have these impulses, we have these certain propensities that come from prior lives that have not been resolved. They may be good propensities, they may be negative propensities, and all mixed up and so on, but we haven't been able to understand them. And this is another reason why it feeds on this ignorance, and why we're having this life again, why we're being born again. So we come into this life with that. And then we're coming in. So now there is this consciousness, there becomes this awareness. So even before we're born, when we are in utero, When we are in the womb of the mother, there is a degree of awareness that we are going through of sounds and of temperature and of pressure, tactile, things like that. We can't see anything. We can hear things. We can't really smell things. Everything's the same, because we're in the amniotic fluid, so there's no smell, but we can hear and we can feel. We have there's sensation there. So their consciousness is being developed. Consciousness is arising. Then we're born in 4. And now we're coming out into this physical body and this brain, and we begin to process some kind of an understanding with that. And we're doing that through the 6 senses, the organs and the objects. So just because we've got just because we have eyes and we have ears and so on, they're not working until we can have an object that we can respond to. We respond in the brain. The eye sees an object, and then the brain processes what that object is. So the two go together, but there is a point where they're separated, where it's just the eye and it's just the object. But then when the eye seizes the object, then there's a mental imprint that comes, or a sound, or a smell, or a taste, or a feeling, a touch feeling, a tactile feeling. So then there's contact. Now we're contacting with outside of our body. All this up to this point is all happening within our own body. Now with number 6, with contact, now it is coming in with outside of ourselves, with our mother, with our father, with our clothing, with our crib, the things that we're beginning to recognize as being outside of ourselves. And then the sensations that are coming out of this. So these sensations are like feelings. There's tactile feelings, but there are emotional feelings. When the mother comes, we get this feeling of peace. When the mother goes away and you can't hear the mother or the father, and a period of time goes by, you start getting a little fearful and you start having the sensation of loss, and now you're feeling that loss. So the sensations of actually touching, hearing, feeling, and so on, and the emotional responses that they manifest as. So the sensations are those emotions. Now, craving is now we want things. We want to have that food. We want to have our mother. We want to have our father. We want to have a nice temperature. We want to be dry. We want these things. We have these cravings that we want these things. And if we don't have these things, then we get upset and we start to cry and fuss and so on and do the things that we do. Now with the craving then comes clinging, because now we have these things and we don't want to let them go. You can't take my bottle away from me. You can't take my mother away from me. You can't take my clothes off. We start to cling. We start to hold on to things. Craving is wanting, not having these things, but wanting these things. Now we've got these things and we don't want to let them go, is clinging. Then becoming now is being able to move from where we are to where we want to be, that we're becoming something, that we are moving to something, we are changing, we're recognizing changing. So take, for instance, a 1-year-old or a 9-month-old is trying to walk, and it doesn't have the strength to walk, but it's crawling. It can crawl. It's trying to become something, like it can see its brothers and sisters. It can see its parents walking and so on. And the infant wants to do that now. It wants to become like them. It wants to become more evolved. It wants to become stronger. It doesn't understand that, of course, but that's what it's trying to do. And it becomes very frustrating if it's not meeting whatever kind of expectations it might have through the other things that it has, through its personality and so on. So we're trying to become something. We're always trying to become something. So as we move along this, we may be starting off as an infant. We're explaining this as an infant, but now as we get to be a child, as we get to be a teenager, as we get to be a young adult and so on, these things get much more sophisticated, much more complex. And we're going through these things right now. We're trying to become right now spiritual beings, to understand spirituality. And we would like to become bodhisattvas and Buddhas and so on. And we're trying to do that. And in the process, we process all these different elements here to what we think is to get to this point. And then we're born into that which we have been seeking. Now I can walk. Now I feel like I have locomotion. Now I'm a human being. Now I'm like my brothers and sisters, my mother and father. Now I'm like a spiritual being. Now I can do these things. Now I've got a job. Now I can be a carpenter and I can cook food and I can do all the things. I'm born as a autonomous being. And then,
So
yes.
I'm sorry for it.
No, go ahead.
So birth more, it doesn't necessarily refer to the physical process of being born, but more to becoming the object of what you want to be. Is that right?
Desire.
Or desire, right?
Desire.
And is that different from number 10, from becoming?
Yes, becoming is the expectation, is the desire, is the what it takes to become that, is learning how to developing the muscles to be able to do that.
That makes sense.
So all these things are very practical. When we break them down, we see the practicality of all this. That's why it's really good to view this as an infant, and then you begin to see now as an adult, we're not thinking about these, but we spontaneously are doing these things. So now we're born as, temporarily as this being that we want to be for this time and space. And then we have to deal with old age and death. That we recognize that we're going to go through, that we've been carrying this body around, like the illustration. Now we've got this liability that we've been carrying around all this time. We got to deal with this aging body that gets sick all the time. And we're facing death right around the corner somewhere. So this is all part of the psychophysical drama of the 6 realms of being a human being. So if you remember, we talked about that. That was what the 6 realms, the wheel of existence, is the psychophysical drama. And this is the component parts that are playing out in that. These are can you see that? Can you maybe, think about that? All right. Were you able to make some kind of drawings or some kind of notes to reflect on this? Does anybody have questions about this? And when you're going to get these illustrations in the mail, you know, one day.
I have a question. It might not be appropriate to ask right now. I don't know.
Go ahead.
I mean, as we move from elementary skanda, you know, from the sort of bare ignorance, you know, armed with whatever we're bringing with us from past lives and our genetics, perhaps. There is a time and space when we encounter form and we come to believe that it's permanent and that it's solid and that we're solid. Is that, I mean, somewhere in this spiral, we have to keep coming back to the point where we're challenging ourselves with the idea of being in a phenomenal world, and the idea that we're complicit in the creation of the phenomena. And I mean, that still sort of befuddles me today. You know, when I meditate on that, is that sort of interface, is that sort of phase located on this timeline? I know the line isn't really a line, it's sort of cyclic and all that, but is there somewhere in between sixth sense object realms and actual contact where we actually get to feel things? Is that the point where we begin to notice form and then verify that it's objective? Because, you know, as I look at all this, I wonder where do we get to fool ourselves that there's actual objects out there, and, you know, and how much cooperation is involved. And because the rest of our lives, unless we're lucky enough to be in a precious human life, we pretty much believe that there's stuff, and the stuff has nothing to do with us, and the stuff is independent and it's solid. So I guess my question was: is there a time and a space in this cycle where we get to encounter that challenge?
Yes, what we're doing, these 12 links, you see, are part of the is the sophistication. This is breaking down what is the sophistication of that process that you just talked about. We take these 12 things with us through all our life. It all is happening simultaneously. So the consciousness, like you would think that part of what you were asking, when does our consciousness grow to the point that we begin to recognize things that are beyond ourselves? When we, so this part here, our sixth sense objects, we begin to understand more about what that is through our denying ourselves of those, through our meditation. We turn those things off. And then we begin to have contact, but contact that is a consciousness level. And we have sensation, and we're realizing the things that are blocking us from being able to do that is our craving and our clinging, that those are the blocks that are preventing us from doing that. So all this is happening all simultaneously. And it gets more sophisticated as we get older, naturally as a human being, no matter what our intellectual progress is. But as our intellectual progress does become more sophisticated, more great, then this becomes more and more dynamic. And so we can process more and more subtle stuff, more and more esoteric thought, and so on. But we're doing it with all of this.
It's no wonder we suffer.
It's complex, isn't it? You know, but after a time of recognizing this, we begin to see how it is that we've been controlled by these things. And by recognizing that, now we seize control of these things. Our transcendence, our intellect, our ability, our experience begins to say, oh, okay, this is my ignorance. This is my impulses. This is my craving. This is my clinging. This is my and here I am. Here's my birth. I keep on having the same outcome because I haven't changed this stuff back here. But if I change something back here, now I have a new outcome. I become a new person in this lifetime. We stop suffering in the same way. We become liberated. We can become liberated here. So this is why we say that in our lifetime, every meditation is a rebirth. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Comes close. Thank you.
So like I said, this stuff requires contemplation, some meditation, thinking about this. This is not stuff that you just pick up one time and get. This is one of the most complex things that we have to consider. This is really breaking down our human nature down into these 12 links of conditioned arising.
Is this kind of like when a few years ago we'd go to the movies, and before the movie started, there was a big globs on the screen, and they started melting and going together and becoming.
That's when the film was burning.
homogenized.
That's when the film was burning in the projector.
Oh, that's if you were dropping acid before you went to the movies.
But the acid might be, but but that's kind of like all of that mixture together there.
Well, yeah, you got a point there, and that's a good illustration. Yes, it is like that, and you see that we're part of this whole stuff, and we're in this sea, this ocean of samsara, of all this stuff, but we don't. Most of it's invisible to us.
And we're kind of
the whole atmosphere is full of all kinds of living stuff, all kinds of inanimate stuff that's invisible to us.
Yeah, don't breathe.
Right.
But this is like all of that comes together like that is kind of like what we are, and then what we're trying to do now is put words to the different colors that are there. Is like these here are like the words that would go to a different color, and they would kind of, like when they're up there on the screen, they kind of all meld around and everything.
Well, the problem with that is how we're going to agree on the colors.
Well, is this 12 links? They're all together. They're together at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're using a little bit of this and a little bit of that at the same time.
Yeah.
Then that is basically a picture of the human condition.
Correct.
Now, what is the 7 links?
The 7 links? What?
Yeah.
7 links? I don't understand. There's 12 links.
Well, you talked about 12 links and then you talked about 7 links.
No, I talked about the 12 links and I talked about the 5 skandhas.
Oh, where did I come up with 7 links?
I don't know.
7.
That's why I ask you to write this stuff down. It's very easy to get confused.
Conditions arising.
Conditions arising, 7 links of conditions arising.
No, this is the 12 links of 12 links in the chain of condition arising. See the title here?
Okay,
Somehow I got 7 also.
yeah. We got 7 links.
No, it's
Together.
12. You see 12 circles here with numbers. It's 12.
Okay,
Right, I'm-
thanks.
Okay. No, that's good. This is what it's important, is to get this stuff understood, so we got to do it at these fundamental levels, and we begin to see how they come together more and more and more. So let me ask Zara and Adrian in particular, because I know both of you work, in with psychological, counseling or whatever with people and so on. How does this land on you? Zara or Adrian, you turned your light on first. Go ahead.
I think, I came in touch with these concepts before, but when you started talking about them, the first thing that came to my mind was the developmental stages of Piaget, and you kind of like learn about those, or I did first year when I went to college, and it kind of like shows that at this certain age in time, the child becomes aware of this type of concepts, sensations, feelings, and I forgot all of those steps, but that's kind of like what reminded me of. What this is different is that I think it kind of like brings together other dimensions of your life, like your previous lives, as well as your future lives, the birth, the death, the continuum, so to speak. And you have a much larger display of human life in general. That's kind of like how I see it from that perspective.
Okay. Zara, you have any comment? I think Zara took a break. Anybody else have any comment about this? Can you relate to this in a psychological way?
Now, the continuum makes sense to me. It links together very well. It's a good graphic. It helps to connect.
So let me ask you this question. I'm going to put this back up on the screen. Where do we break the chain? As Gary just said, and I think Adrian said, use the word continuum. Maybe Michael used the word continuum also. The continuum, where do we break the chain? Where do we break the continuum?
I don't think there's a break in the chain. I think this link is broken when you reach enlightenment, and then the whole cyclic existence breaks down, because you don't belong in this samsaric cycle of existence anymore, and that's when it's broken.
Well, where are
Otherwise,
you? Where are you? Where are you?
You mean in this 12 links?
Yeah.
of conditioning arising.
Yeah, if we're not in the 12 links, then where are we? You know, I know we're using a concept to talk about something that's non-conceptual, but I'm trying to get to a point. So where is it that we are if we're not on the continuum?
I mean, I think, in my opinion, it's all related to consciousness and becoming aware of any of this interdependent elements in this condition arising. In other words, like we might be at the contact, sensation, craving, clinging, in one day, but it kind of like depends on how we're processing all of that. Some other links, I guess, in here, like the old age and death. Definitely, you're going to process those at a certain time in your life. Obviously, when you're more advanced in age, while others, of course, when you're a lot younger. So it really depends of where you're at in your life, but I think more likely of how you're processing those in terms of
You're looking at this, and so when you say that, it makes me think that you're thinking in terms of time.
Well, yes and no, because I think you can experience, let's say number 12, the old age and death, through meditation, through a meditation process, right? And that is not necessarily related to time and age, but more like of a conscious level, right? Because just like you said, every meditation is a preparation or experiencing the stage of death, right? So it's not a matter of age, it's not a matter of getting there physically, but also experiencing it at the consciousness level.
So think of this in terms of, we've talked about the three realms before, or the three spheres, the three worlds, these three different words that are basically talking about the same thing. Three worlds, three realms, three spheres. And what does that mean? It's the human experience that's based in, one would be the desire realm and the form realm. The second would be the desireless realm and the form realm. And the third would be the desireless, formless realm. So out of those three spheres, what do you think that this is, what is this characterizing? What is this, where is this manifesting?
Isn't that between death and birth, and that desireless, formless?
No, because those three realms are omnipresent. But it's a matter of our recognition of them.
Well, run that question by again.
The three realms, or the three worlds. We are in the realm of desire and the realm of form. That's our realm now. We aspire to the realm that is desireless, but yet has form. And then we ultra aspire to the desireless, formless realm.
Correct. But what you were saying on here, the question that you were asking about
where does this take place?
Where does it take place? It takes place between old age and death and birth.
Well, I'm asking, where does it take place in the three realms?
Formless and what is it? The other condition.
Well, the answer that I'm looking for is that this takes place in the samsaric realm, in the realm of desire and the realm of form.
That's these 12, the chain.
This change takes place in the realm of samsara. And if we can transcend, then these things are no longer we're not following the chain of conditioned arising. We've broken free from that conditioned arising.
Right. So that's when you go into the formless.
You go in, and then ultimately you go into the formless,
Right.
desireless realm. But in between is the desireless form realm, and that's the Sambhogaya. That's the spiritual investigation that we go through, the meditative investigation that we go through. So where do we suffer with this? We suffer in present existence. We suffer in our consciousness. We suffer in our name and form, which would be number 4, mental and physical. We suffer in the 6 senses here, number 5. We suffer in contact, number 6. We suffer in sensation, feelings, number 7. So we suffer in these in our present existence, and we suffer in our future existence in the degree that we are ignorant of it, that we are afraid of it, that we haven't allowed ourselves to liberate from what that future existence is. And then we suffer from our old age and death for the same reason, the expectation of it, our future existence. So we suffer from our present existence and we suffer from our future existence. So this helps us to identify what it is that we need to transcend. When we work on that, then the fruits of the present existence begin to dissolve by themselves. And then our degree of ignorance decreases and our impulses decrease because we become simpler. So that when we come out of the meditation, the example is now, we go through this in meditation, we come out of the meditation, now there's less concern with this old age and death, there's less ignorance and there's less impulses, there's less karmic seeds. It's simpler. And all this all becomes lighter. All this becomes just simpler. To put it another way, the afflicting emotions group is the ignorance, the craving, and the grasping, the clinging. These are the afflictive emotions. These are the emotion groups. So we talk about what we don't know, craving what it is that we want in this life, the fruit of this life, and the grasping and the holding on to those things. So these are emotions that are interfering with our liberation. And the karma group that comes out of that is the mental formations, the habitual tendencies, which is number 2, and the becoming existence, number 10. This here is the karma group. So this is our karma coming to us from where we are, and this is our karma going out into our birth, into our old age, and coming back to this point here. So it's that continuum.
It would
So,
seem the question might be, how do we get out of this situation now?
okay, good question. So we got to go back to this because it's a good question, and it's a simple, complex question. And the answer is the Buddha. The answer is, in each one of these 6 realms is a Buddha to help us to be able to transcend the 12 links. And as we begin to transcend, as we have those glimpses of transcending, now we can be more objective. We can look down and we can see this. We have this objectivity that right now we can't see. We're caught in the woods. We can't see the whole forest, and we can't see that around the forest are meadows and are lakes and is an ocean, all these other things, because we're so caught up in just being in the trees. So it's through our spirituality that's being symbolized here by the Buddhas. That's how we get out of it. That's how we transcend.
So then do we go around the circle in a clockwise manner and jump from one realm to another realm?
No, it's
Is-
a holon. It's a holon. All this is experienced simultaneously by a matter of degree.
Okay, so that means that we feel, sometime we feel one or the other of these things, or maybe 2 of them together.
Right.
Yeah, and then is there a way to get completely out of one realm and into another, into the other ones?
Well, we work on that. Yeah, that's what we work on our Dharma practice to be. We don't want to fall into the lower realms. We talk about that. But yet, the potential is always there for us. And we have to be ever vigilant. And that's why we have the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path to help us, to guide us through this. So we have all these mechanisms, we have all these systems available to us to be able to transcend, to be able to go beyond this, to not to be born in this cyclic existence anymore.
Because this is something like astrology, the different things that you've got pictured here is like astrology and going through there.
In a structural kind of a way, but not in a reality kind of a way.
That's the base, Bilhola.
It helps me to think of this. The concept of a holon suggests more than 2 dimensions. So If you've ever seen a slice of the human body that's done with magnetic resonance imagery, it's actually like a cross section of the body, and this looks like just a slice out of that sort of being, when actually in front of this and behind this, all of these things are part of that sort of stream. All of these things are part of that form body at the same time.
That's right. So we've got to break out of our conventional, our thinking, and use fresh new imagery that helps us to break free. So going back again to the deities, that's the imagery of being able to recognize ourselves as those deities in their mandalas, and becoming that. And then this little wheel here just becomes, just a cog in all of that. So it's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it?
Lance, I have a question for you. When was the 12 links of interdependent origination developed? Was that something that Shakyamuni Buddha taught about, or was it developed later?
Yes, it was done by Buddha Shakyamuni, and I don't know if it was done at Shravasti or exactly where, and among what teachings he taught, but yes, in all the books that I've read, there's always been a credit given to him, and now I need to pay attention to where he said it. So
Is it considered part of the first turning of the wheel?
Oh no, this is Abhidharma.
And what makes it Abhidharma? I think you wrote something about that. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm getting confused with something earlier today. What makes it Abhidharma?
Because this is the wisdom. This is the wisdom of the Buddha. The Hinayana is the discipline. The Mahayana is the devotion. And the Vajrayana is the wisdom part. So the Abhidharma is the Vajrayana, is becoming the Buddha, is understanding what it is to become the Buddha, the omniscience of the Buddha. To make that omniscience of the Buddha your omniscience, that you are the Buddha. So
this is considered part of the third turning of the wheel? The third turning of the wheel?
Yes.
Okay.
So you see why we couldn't talk about this, 2 years ago, or whenever we were first talking about the 6 realms of human existence, because it was enough to be able to talk about that, and now to get to this point, take some time to be able to assimilate into the 6 realms of human existence, to be able to get to this point, to see even more subtler, what's at work, for this, or what's at work for the 6 realms to manifest.
I mean, the struggle is the struggle for illumination anyway. I mean, the way for me, the way to ease out of this chain, or to envision easing out, is to gain increasing tolerance for the actualization of non-duality, and to get away from interdependence, to get away from acknowledging the power of other influences, of other beings, of other things that may or may not actually exist.
Well, here's the rub. The way you just explained it, and You know, if I don't get this right, the way you do it is that we intellectualize our way out of it. But what we do is we practice our way out of it by being more and more simple. We need less intellectualization. But we can't, but we have to identify the intellectualization to be able to eliminate it, to be able to abide in that and not be afraid saying, oh, I'm losing my mind. Oh, I'm giving up this stuff that I thought was so great. I'm attracted to my mind. This is the wisdom. This is the wisdom of obscuration. We talk about the obscurations of emotions. We talk about the obscuration of wisdom. I need to know my way out of this.
Yeah, the conditioned existence is based on conceptual processes. So the way out of that is to lose concepts, to just trim those out, thin those out. Yeah.
To become pure love, compassion, joy, and equanimity.
We kind of have to look at what we do rather than what someone else is doing in order to get out of this, to understand where we are and really be objective about who and where we are, and not worry about anybody else, because in reality, we're all equal.
There is no someone else.
Excuse me?
There is no someone else.
It's all right. It's all a figment of our imagination.
Same taste.
It's all temporary, you know. We're seeing that as real, and we need at the core of this, we need to let all that go. This is all the corporal manifestation of all this, of space.
Lance, doesn't all of this happen through meditation and practice? Isn't that the key to it?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Well, some of us have an easier time of it than others. You know, some people appear to be doing it in one lifetime, in a present lifetime. And it's true, they're doing it in a present lifetime, but you don't know how many lifetimes before they had that lifetime to be able to get to purify, to get to that point of that lifetime.
Sure.
Well, another thing is it's easier to read something out of a book and not know it and explain it, or not explain it, but propagate it, and rather than making it part of the self.
So in other words, a vicarious experience as opposed to a gnosis.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to incorporate all of that into your knowledge framework.
Yeah. Whenever I
Because
talk about this, I get a really good buzz.
do you feel that oneness?
Sure.
And is it just a temporary thing, or is it something that stays with
Something
you?
that sometimes gets obscured, you know, but it's always there. And if I can give myself just a few moments, I can get right back to it. You know, when I get angry, it takes me longer to get back to it, but I'll get back there.
If you walk out your front door, it's going to be obscured.
Beg pardon?
if you walk out your front door, it's going to be obscured in some way.
Well, not
Life seems to
necessarily.
me.
Not necessarily. You know, it's up to me, and it's up to my, you know, degree of being able to deal with the phenomenal world, what I'm holding on to and what I have aversions to. You know, my home is not necessarily the safest place I can be, or is outside of my home the most dangerous place I can be. It depends how you are able to carry it with you, or liberate. It's better to express it as liberate from it. How well you can be liberated when you go outside your house. How well I can be liberated inside my house.
It's something that you have to, it has to come from the heart, and you have to feel it. And you have to, it's not a memory thing. You don't have to memorize it. You have to feel it. And you have to be it.
And it's all there. We have it. You know, the mind of the Buddha is very simple. It's uncomplicated. We make it complicated.
Yeah. Right.
So, Lance, how do we make this like a tool of our daily practice?
This teaching,
How is this going to help us for?
by reviewing it and you know, from time to time, you know, studying it, maybe now while it's a little bit fresh in your memory, and when you get the, you know, the artwork that's going to come and so on, and to recreate it in your mind, and to be able to identify these things, you know, and to be able to compartmentalize things in order that we can liberate these things. So it's what do we put onto the path? We're putting ourselves onto the path. When we put ourselves onto the path, what does that mean? Does that mean our personalities and our aggregates, our heaps, our skandhas? Yes. This is what we put onto the path. This is what we are. So we need to understand it from this point of view to be able to liberate from it. Otherwise, we're just caught in the trees. We're just caught in the body. We're caught in the intellect. We've got a feeling in our heart. We've had some glimpses. We've had some perceptions, but we're not free of it. We're not free of the body. We're not free of the intellect. We haven't really liberated yet. We have an aspiration. We have a feel for it, but how do we do it? What is it that's holding us back? So this is helping us to understand what it is that's holding us back, to understand the mechanics of the psychophysical being.
This is just a big picture, though. Like a lot of times, you're getting lost into the minutia of things. They're like tiny things that are holding you back from your practice, or from seeing beyond things. I like how Michael said it, and seeing this picture as an X-ray. Just kind of like, I guess we can do like a before and after, picture, taking a picture of us, and kind of like an X-ray of where we are before practice, and then later on, after a few years, after we've been through this, taking a look back and just like, kind of like you said, what else do we need to work on?
Yeah. I mean, that's in essence what we're doing. That's the process that we're going through. it may be helpful to you in the Jewel Ornament Liberation, pages 225. This is the chapter on meditation concentration, meditative concentration. If you look at pages 225 to 228, those pages have a lot to do with this inner interdependence and being able to recognize this interdependence. Now, if you remember in the prayer that we recite, the Day Karma prayer, the end of the Day Karma prayer, it says, may the teachings of the great Drikung the Ratna Shri, who is Jigdan Sumgun, right? Who is omniscient, all-knowing, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence. Not the suppressor of interdependence, not the ignorer of interdependence, but the master of it. Knowing how to use this, it becomes part of your toolbox to liberate yourself and to help others liberate themselves. Wisdom is the power, right? Skillful means is the power.
Right. Just knowing how to navigate all this.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I've heard, I forgot what type of teaching that was, is that if you're unable to take in all the mental pressure of samsara, psychological pressure, you're not going to be able to do that while you're in nirvana, or because there's that psychological pressure there as well. And that's why we are just like constantly getting reborn and coming back into samsara.
Well, if you're saying that that your perception or your expectation that nirvana has psychological pressure, and that becomes a motivation for me not to engage in that, if that's what you're saying, I can understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're saying that there's psychological pressure in nirvana, I don't agree with that. You know, the definition of nirvana is having transcended psychological pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, you know, when you're in the bardo and you're coming in touch with the real nature of mind, and you're realizing, hey, okay, well, I cannot withstand all this. I cannot have all that much freedom. I guess that's what I'm referring to as like psychological pressure.
Okay.
And that's why, you know, as a being, I'm looking for form. I'm looking to, you know, come back into form. I guess that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's not nirvana. Okay. Anybody else got anything else you want to talk about?
Just one thing, I got curious, and as you could expect, there's a lot of stuff you can find on Google about dependent origination, including the, you know, ideas about how it came together, connected with the skandhas. I didn't read it because I was listening to you, Lance, but just a lot of stuff out there if you want to fill your head with a lot of, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, keep it simple. And there are teachings on YouTube that Garchin has done and other, Drikung masters have done. Not to say that other masters from other lineages aren't useful, but you just got to be careful because there is a lot of stuff out there that can take you down some, they explain it in different ways, maybe.
Yep.
It's approached different ways. So it's good to stay within a lineage, but yeah, investigate these things.
Yeah, I was kind of curious to see the label of which turning of the wheel it was on. I couldn't find that, but it was definitely part of his original teachings. Because it's about, it elaborates on the, I think it was the first two noble truths that it was pointed out in one thing. But anyway, just got a little curious about that.
Okay. Well, we can talk about this another time. We can go into more detail with this, maybe next year. I mean, this has to sink in, and you need to contemplate this. There's no point in just bombarding more concepts on top of concepts that you haven't sorted out yet. So you gotta let this assimilate into your awareness.
Is plainly, not that I doubted you or anyone, but just doing that quick Google search, it's very plain that it is one of the fundamental Buddhist teachings.
Yes. Fundamental in the degree that there has to be a lot of preparation to get to this point.
Also fundamental as just a core Buddhist teaching. You talk about the Four Noble Truths, and you can't talk about Buddhism without talking about the 12 links of dependent origination.
And you can't, that's right. And you can't talk about this until you understand about emptiness. You can understand about the three realms, and you can't understand about the five poisons and the five antidotes and the five wisdoms and so on. There's a lot of understanding that needs to go to be able to get to this point. But it is a core teaching. Yes, you're right.
There's a lot of conversation in another couple of sects that point to the Lotus Sutra as being one of the sources of concepts like the 12 links and dependent origination. A lot of the Chinese Buddhists that were linked to that led up to Nichiren Buddhism. That was one of their favorite topics, was interdependent and dependent origination. So the Lotus Sutra addresses that.
Yeah, I'm not a good student of that, but I don't doubt that. Okay, so anybody else have anything else you want to discuss? All right, the next week we're going to talk about the 8 consciousnesses, which is now taking this a little bit deeper in terms of our psychological. And so, and the outline for that is in the package that I've addressed to all of you. So you'll get that. And Curtis, I sent it to you as well as Dharma Surya. So be on the lookout for that.
Oh boy.
So, so we'll talk about that next week. And
That's a killer document.
what's that? The 8 consciousnesses?
Your 13-page treatise on everyday consciousness. Yeah.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a mind blower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So we'll do our dedication and page 20 and 21 and 22. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikung Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the three times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Sharvaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain a supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, ah, Om, Om, ah, Om, ah. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all very much.